Hey, this is the franchise Shane Douglas, ECW's original World Heavyweight Champion. Right now, you're watching the #1 wrestling podcast on all of Long Island, Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Monty and the Pharaoh.
The Monty and Pharaoh Show.
And you're watching the Monty and Pharaoh Show.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
With Monty and the Pharaoh.
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 Monty and Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
And Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, is it Monty and the Pharaoh?
Monty and Pharaoh. The Monty and the Pharaoh Show.
The Monty and the Pharaoh. To the Monty and the Pharaoh Show. And it's Monty and the Pharaoh, baby.
Watching Monty and the Pharaoh.
With Monty and the Pharaoh. Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, what a rush.
We've got the future Hall of Famer, that rocker, Marty Jannetty, MJ in the house, and I'm sitting here with two more future Hall of Famers, Monty and the Pharaoh. We're doing that stuff and we gonna rock it.
We're living this life, not just dreaming it, we're doing it for real. Straight to the top. Working hard every day just to live a better way.
All right, welcome back to a special Saturday edition of Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monty and the Pharaoh, seen only here live out of Rockstar Studios, Village Connection Radio, out of Huntington, New York. At the board is the owner and super producer, Mr. Jim Savali. Jim, good morning, sir.
What up, man? I think that this show put Huntington on the map, bro. Did you guys know anything about Huntington?
Not till I got here for this,
right there.
for
See,
this
we
show.
proved it.
There you go.
That's that.
And to the right is the star of the show, Mr. Jimmy Pharaoh. Jimmy, how are you, friend?
It's morning.
I was
Hi.
I was concerned you might not get up this morning.
You should be.
Once again, I want to thank our show sponsors, Seats Link, there you go, Off the Rails Coffee Roasters. See, I don't have my shit together either.
Oh, that's okay.
And I want to thank the band Aqua Cherry, which is the official Monty and the Pharaoh theme song. But more importantly, we've got two special guests in the house. None other than two pro wrestling superstars, Mr. Shane Douglas.
What's up, brother?
What is up?
How you guys doing, man?
Good.
And Mr. Just Incredible.
How are you guys?
Hey,
Good.
man. Good morning. Thank you for coming in this morning. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you
All
having
right, so
us.
here's how the show is going to go. Mr. Jimmy Pharaoh will just go over some of your career highlights, and then let's just have a good conversation about anything you want, and we know what we're going to open up with anyway. So,
Alrighty then. Good morning, folks. The Pharaoh's going to attempt to form sentences. Ladies and gentlemen, part of our first of two very special guests this morning, Peter Joseph P.J. Polacco, born October 16th, the day before the Pharaoh, and Eric Sims' birthday. Very interesting. 1973. Oh, really now? Okay.
who memorizes these people's birthday? I don't know. I have enough trouble remembering my wife's birthday.
Or your own.
Peter Polacco's birthday.
Yeah.
But you're a young guy, dude.
Yeah, you are.
Not really.
No, well, compared to us, you are. You are. You're doing all right. You know, we'll get there before you. If you don't
Mileage, not the age.
There you go.
Mr. Polacco, semi-retired, so it says on this sheet. American
fully active.
Fully active. So much for that crap. American professional wrestler, obviously best known for his appearances with ECW, of course, WWF. Mostly known, of course, for the awesome name Just Incredible. He is also known for an earlier stint in WWF under the ring name Aldo Montoya, a one-time ECW World Heavyweight Champion, multiple-time tag team champion with the awesome and very, very much underrated in my mind Lance Storm. This is, folks, the great. Not just the coolest. Not just the best. This is just incredible.
Nice. All right, man. That's quite the intro, right?
And
Hannibal doesn't give you that kind of intro. He just goes straight to the bullshit with you.
Yeah, get right to it.
What are you going to do?
That's just go ahead.
Holy drying paint. Anyway, guest number 2, folks, of course. And in my mind, basically the man who built everything from my personal favorite company, ECW, started it all. Born November 21st, 1964, Troy Allen Martin, of course, American professional wrestler, better known by his ring name, Shane the Franchise Douglas. He is best known for his 10 years, of course, in ECW, where he helped build the ship, if not put it on his shoulders in the very beginning. World Championship Wrestling, of course, where I wanted to smack Bischoff all over the place. World Wrestling World Wrestling Federation, of course, where there's several people we want to smack all over the place. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my personal favorites, and of course partnered up with the awesome Francine, ladies and gentlemen, the franchise, the original ECW World Heavyweight Champion.
What's up, guys?
Shane Douglas.
All right, baby. All right.
Thank you.
Shane, for your podcast, you need a pharaoh, dude.
I do.
Think about that. You need a pharaoh.
What are you doing?
Everybody needs their own personal
pharaoh.
pharaoh.
Here? That's
Slide them on over, right?
Oh my God! Thank you.
Let's talk about the most important thing on the docket right now. Plastic straws.
Oh,
What?
Paper straws.
This is no. It's paper.
It's paper
what
straws
it should be.
and plastic
And what
straws.
it is.
this straw has been in there for 5-10 minutes, and it's already starting to bend and wobble. It'll never make it to the end of the. Come on, Dunkin' Donuts, get your head out of your asses. What the hell?
How does it? Shane, you're intelligent. I'm semi. I border, but how does paper and
Wait, what
liquid?
about Justin? He doesn't get an intelligence. Does he rate?
Of course he is, but but this was Shane's beef when he came in. So explain to me, scientific one, how paper and liquid are even supposed to be together. What is that thing?
There's a reason they don't make ships out of paper, because paper and water and liquids don't mix.
I don't understand this concept.
But, PJ made a great point. They're saving the world by no plastic straws, right?
Are they?
The cup is plastic, so what?
Well, because that's because the government has to take one step at a time, right? Let's start with the straw first, and let's go to this. But then eventually, if people bitch enough, we'll go back to plastic.
Oh, yeah.
Because really, who cares about the future of the planet, right? Because we'll be dead by the time it's going to collapse anyway.
What the hell?
Fucking meteor hits us in 20 years, we're all dead anyway, so it doesn't matter. We're all good. We're all up there in age.
The great extinction's coming.
I don't feel like
Brought
I
on
learned
by
anything.
paper straws.
What is that?
All right, before we get to wrestling stuff, you guys want to weigh in on the Iran deal with Trump?
Ooh.
Well, the first thing is like the shooting this plane down, right? We hear from the news stations that they have, one of the most advanced air, defense systems and everything else, and they can't tell the difference of a plane ascending a big 747 and think it's a missile. I'd say they might want to upgrade their operating system because, all joking aside, 176 people dead. They thought they had taken the high ground, right? By shooting the missiles off into a few buildings, and then they shoot down a plane and
That's crazy.
176 people die. It's nauseating. It really is nauseating.
Justin?
I have no comment.
Okay.
Stay away from that.
Yeah.
Stay away from that crap. I got you.
If I'm not informed,
I got you.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
All right, well, let's hit some wrestling.
Yeah.
Justin, what was your first big break in pro wrestling?
My first big break was 1993. I was doing jobs as PJ Walker on the original Monday Night Raw at that little Manhattan Center in New York City. Mm-hmm. And I was wrestling IRS Mike Rotundo, and they was doing a feud with Razor Ramon, and Razor came out to distract him, and I rolled him up 1, 2, 3. So that got my name on the map. And my real big break came when Brian Lee came to WWE as the fake Undertaker. And I live in Connecticut, and the office is in Connecticut. And before they had a performance center there, you had a little TV studio, which I believe is still there. They put up a ring, and me, Mark, the real Undertaker, and Brian Lee, we worked out all week so Brian could replicate Undertaker's moves. Friday, we had a dress rehearsal. because I was supposed to wrestle him on Monday Night Raw Live. Pat Patterson, Vince McMahon came down, so it was just all of us, very close quarters. And Pat Patterson started to talk to me like, this kid's good, talking to Vince, and he goes, what nationality are you? And I said, well, I'm Portuguese. He goes, hey, Vince, this guy's Portuguese. I know I do a bad Pat. But anyways, and I was like, okay, that's kind of weird that it's a big deal that I'm Portuguese. He goes, do you speak it? I said, yes, sir, I do. And again, he told Vince, I speak it. Apparently the whole time, they had drawn up a character for Aldo Montoya. He was supposed to be a soccer player because business was bad in the United States, so they were planning on going to Brazil, which Portuguese-speaking country, and Portugal, whatever. So that was the entire... I just was at the right place at the right time.
Right.
I mean, I was fairly talented, but very inexperienced at that point. I've only had maybe 40 or 50 matches under my belt. So I was just, right place, right time.
What was it like early on working out with guys the size of an Undertaker? That had to be interesting.
It was very, very intimidating. I don't think people... It's not like that today, I noticed. But back then, I remember one of my first matches, I wrestled... My first match in WWE, or WWF at the time, I wrestled Lex Luger.
Okay.
And the rings were so big and the lights, it was so intimidating. I'd never been on television before. And I don't think people understand how big those guys were and how intimidating it was. And back then, I got in the ring to just see if I can run just to get my foot, my head wrapped around it because I wanted to do a good job. And people are looking at nobody was in the ring. Now everybody's in the ring working out all their stuff and doing all this stuff. And I was people were looking at you what is this kid doing in the ring? I was just trying to run the ropes, see if, get my steps. And it was, So that was really it, man. It was I was 19, 20 years old. I was definitely not prepared, both as a young man and a performer. But I quickly learned, and it was I'll tell you what, it was a great experience. I got to travel the world, work with a lot of amazing people, and and it helped. What I think helped me was at least I knew, even though the Aldo character wasn't anything to talk about, you got the experience to be on live television. To work television. And I think when I went to ECW, I think Paul recognized, because ECW had their first pay-per-view, I believe, Barely Legal, going into their second one. I was part of the second one, and all of them from then on. But I think he was looking for somebody that was young and had been familiar with television a little bit. And I just think it helped me, and I learned really everything else from ECW, how to be a better performer and character. And
it's like night and day.
I never did promos between the two, really, until I got to ECW. So I wasn't very good at those either when I first got there, and but it was definitely interesting.
Cool. Shane, clearly Justin broke in, and you obviously broke in during a time where the value in becoming a wrestler was much higher at the level than it is today. How do you feel about the fact that it doesn't seem like today there's no licensing required? Anybody can just get in the ring. It wasn't like you guys. I mean, it was a completely different situation. How do you feel about today's state of how it is so easy for anybody to get in the ring today and call themselves a wrestler?
Sure.
Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I look back and I think, the way I came into the business, you say about break. My first break came in 1978 meeting Dominic DeNucci. And, Dominic was one of the big stars from that previous generation, World Tag Team Champion multiple times. Just a great guy and a fantastic trainer. And, but there, for instance, we first started at Dominic's school, we were 6 months only on the mats. The ring is sitting right there. When you're a kid, that's all you want to do is get in that ring and hit the ropes, right? We were on the mats for 6 months, forbidden of getting in the ring. And if you got in that ring,
forbidden,
you all forbidden, and you probably get your ass stretched. Dominic was pretty well versed amateur wrestler.
What would be stretched, by the way? Just give me a few details.
Dominic used to do this thing. You hear these stories of people that would get hurt, like breaking bones and stuff, to see if he'd come back. Dominic never went to that degree, but he would wrestle around with you and really push you. I had some amateur background, and he'd really push you, but then when he was ready, he would just take you down and elbow in your cheek, and just, leaning into you, let you know he's the boss, no reason to try to fight back.
In his prime was a large man.
Big boy.
Underratedly large. Big guy.
Real big guy. Yeah. About 6'3", 6'2", 6'3", at the time, about 265, I'd say.
Do you think anything should be changed today as far as proper licensing, perhaps,
Well, I think so. The point I was going to make is that, like, when I got my break in the business and went to UWF, nobody ever came to me and said this, but I'm certain it happened, that Bill Watts probably on a week-to-week or at least every couple of weeks was going to Pez Whatley, who I started working with first, and then went to Dick Slater, then Dick Murdoch. And I'm sure along the way somewhere, hey, how's the kid doing? How's the kid doing? And if they would come back and say, the kid's got an attitude, the kid's stiff, the kid doesn't have it, you'd have seen Shane Douglas disappear and some other kid would have gotten that spot. Dominic taught me, the best advice I'd ever gotten in the wrestling business, and me, Mick, and all of us, Cody Michaels and Brian Hildebrand, told us keep our mouth shut and eyes and ears open. And I never opened my mouth. When I went to WWF the first time to do jobs with Randy Savage, was the first person I worked with. And he said to me, so what can you do, kid? And I thought, I like real sheepishly said, well, I can drop kick and I can, and he said, no, what's your best stuff? I was like intimidated to even talk because we were taught not to do that. And afterwards he came back, and I'll never forget this. He came back and, put me over a little bit and got himself over big. Came back afterwards and he thanked me and thanked me and thanked me. He said, always remember, kid, if you ever plan on having a career in this business, always thank the guy that puts you over.
Wow.
And Randy
he actually helped you out and put you over a bit, which is amazing.
That is amazing.
A guy that high.
Absolutely.
Guys, we're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. That was simple, right? World of professional wrestling. How do you guys keep a relationship? How do you keep a marriage strong? How do you become a good father?
You don't.
Well, honestly, yeah.
It decimates marriages, right? For people that stay married is a pretty amazing thing. Yeah. The toughest part of our business, and guys, first of all, so everybody understands, I say it in my podcast all the time, when I say the boys, I mean the men and the women in the dressing room. Everybody's the boys. It's you're on the road. The boys never complain about being on the road. We chose that life, but you missed your kids' first words, first steps, first days of school. All the big birthdays and all that kind of stuff. You pretty much are married to the business, and the strongest women can bear that out and maintain the marriage. But I've never done a study on the figures, but I'd say it's probably north of 90% that marriages fail.
Special type of woman to wait.
Absolutely.
I've been married 23 years.
There you go.
God bless.
Married in,
Well done, sir.
So when's the book coming out to give the rest of us tips?
I actually have a book coming out.
There it is. There it is.
Chapter 3. No, I got married. Yeah, seriously.
Okay.
I got married June 4th, 1997. I'm still married to the same young lady. 3 beautiful kids.
Congratulations.
My oldest son is Rowan University, sophomore. Teak.
Very cool.
Fraternity. So he's a great kid. I'm very blessed. And what helped me, at least, was ECW.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, we started to travel. We traveled all over the place, but mostly it was in the Northeast. And my wife's from New Jersey, and she has actually worked with the company doing the merchandise until she got pregnant with my son, who was born in 2000.
So you met through the company?
No, we met outside, but
Okay.
when she was coming around anyways, and that was when Damien got fired. I believe a position opened up. And she was traveling with me anyways because we didn't have kids at the time. So it just worked out. We traveled until 2000.
Were you worried about the boys, though? Right?
No.
We all hear about what happens in the locker room, right?
If it was WWE, I might have been worried. But ECW was, it sounds weird, but it was a very family. We were a family.
That's true.
We wouldn't do that stuff,
What's your kids take when they see videos of Dad?
They don't, they've been around it so long, they really don't.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, they don't like.
Check out Dad.
They don't. No, they don't. No.
Really?
They really don't.
Okay.
They stay as far away from it as possible.
Yeah, okay.
As professional wrestlers, right? You guys have to have egos. So I was just thinking about regular life, right? If you're lucky enough, you don't get fired from a job or whatever else.
Sure.
How does it affect your ego when you get let go from a company?
For me, it's sort of like it was a revolving door. I came into the business when there were still the territories. And so, if Company A fired you or let you go or wrapped you up, you went to Company B, C, D, E, F, G. As that changed, for most of my career in the ring, you still had WWF, WCW, and ECW, so there still were alternatives.
But it wasn't a hit to your ego. Like, weren't you like, you got families, you got kids, and you're like, oh man, I got.
You usually see the writing on the wall, anyways, and there's usually a lot of things that come with it. Pro wrestling is one of the strangest things because sometimes talent doesn't always. You know what I mean? It doesn't always.
Cream doesn't always rise to the top.
Well, but it's not necessarily always the case. It usually does, but not necessarily always. And we've both been in that situation where we've been in a place that didn't do much with us. But nonetheless, it doesn't hurt my ego. What hurt what hurt a lot of the guys was in 2001 when ECW and ironically WCW went out of business. And that's you got 3 places to work. Now you got 1.
Yeah.
And that really that was a scary time in the business.
Sure.
Yeah.
Shane, I wanted to ask you, and this is not easy for me. Mike, of course.
I purposely gave him this question.
He gives me these
the best
questions! As we know, there's some history with you and Scott Hall, obviously.
Yeah.
Scott Hall was in here once with us, and he did give us a kick-ass interview, but quite honestly, personally, afterwards, I wasn't too thrilled. I was like, what's this guy's problem? Anyway, he had some not-so-great words about you in response to your story about what went down with that Intercontinental thing. To sum it up, basically, he was like, for a guy who has a lot to say, he wasn't a great talker, and he was small, he's this, that, and the other thing. Do you have any rebuttal?
First of all, I don't get the small thing. I understand.
No, I don't get any. He's a great talker, too. What are we talking about?
I understand.
One of the best in the business.
I'm very...
I understand Hall's a tall guy.
Yeah.
But at no time, I was a little taken aback. Like, this is not a small guy. This is a big guy. This is like a guy you don't want to fuck with or fight with, right?
Yeah.
So... Yeah, so...
The problem was I sensed a huge amount of disrespect, and coming from a fan who knows what he's looking at for almost 45 years now, how dare you, first of all, but any rebuttal to Mr. Hall?
My rebuttal to it is my career speaks for itself. I came into the business when, my dad, my uncle, my brother wasn't a booker. I had no family in the business. I was taught to go out there and do it in the ring. Right. I worked my ass off to learn my craft. Because you had to. Right. I said earlier, if I hadn't, I'd have been out the back door and some other kid would have been in that spot. But I've always loved professional wrestling. Since I was 6, 7 years old and first started watching studio wrestling in Pittsburgh with Bruno and Bill Cardille and Dominic and Haystacks and Jumpin' Johnny DeFazio and the Valiant Brothers and all the great...
The Wolfman?
The Wolfman, all those guys, right?
The Wolfman.
I love the Wolfman. The big X on the screen.
But I wanted to be able to do what those guys did. And then later, as I was coming up in the business, you see it taken to a whole new level, like, no pun intended, but the business on steroids, right? You see Randy Macho Man Savage, this colorful, larger-than-life, incredible talent. And you think in the back of your head someplace, I'd like to try to be like that, but you never were pretentious enough to believe that you could be. And then, something just clicks. Steve Austin and I, when I was doing his podcast, we hadn't spoken in years, and he asked me, before we went on the air, how long did it take before you felt comfortable in the ring? And I thought about it, and I said, well, about 7 years. He said, it was 7 years for me, too. Now, put that in context. We were 7 years, 350-plus days a year, wrestling minimum 20, 25, 35, 45, sometimes 55 minutes a night, double shots on Saturdays and Sundays. So in a month's time, we were getting what these kids today are getting in a year or two. And we were in the ring with guys that were legitimate icons and future Hall of Famers and all of that. Just shut up and listen, kid, and learn. I just wanted to learn my craft. And so my rebuttal to Scott would be, by the way, we've buried the hatchet about as much as we're probably going to bury the hatchet. I'll never back down from telling the truth of the story because the fans, I think, deserve to know it. If there's I've heard story, Sean say, well, he wasn't very good. Well, Sean says that, and look, I've said it a million times. Sean is, if not he's one of the great all-time in-ring workers.
A measuring stick for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if I can go and have a great match with Sandman in ECW, with Mikey Whipwreck in ECW, PJ in ECW,
all different approaches.
And what he says in his, because he's got this big thing that him and Flair, he's better than Flair. And all that kind of. One thing about Flair, and people know my differences with Flair, Flair could make a broomstick look great, right?
Good.
And so if you can't take that guy in ECW that has that gift of gab and can work in the ring with all these different styles, and you can't have a good match with that guy, then there's clearly a problem on one side of the equation. We were wrestling, Bill Watts was there, and we wrestled in Valparaiso, Indiana, Valparaiso University, in a dark match. And the place was packed, 17,000 people. And I knew what Watts was doing because I'd worked for him. He's in the back, glued to that monitor and watching what kind of chemistry these two have. And we go to lock up, and Sean takes a flat back bump, and he's laying in the ring laughing. Well, I knew Bill Watts right then had steam coming out of his ears. And I said, unless you want to get your ass stretched, you best get back to your feet. And he jumped up, covered about, take it easy, Dean, just ribbing, Dean, that kind of shit. Well, I don't rib in the ring, because those people, those 17,000 people paid their money. They didn't come to see a comedy show. They came to see two guys wrestle, two guys they've got a lot of respect for. And I knew Watts was having a stroke right now. So I came back to the curtain, livid. And it was the only time I'd ever spoken back to Bill. Bill, I apologize. I came walking back and looked at me and went, Bill was usually rah, 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 rah. And he just was speechless. He opened his arms like, what the fuck? And I said, I looked at him, I said, don't want to hear it, talk to your golden boy. And, and that just started this long litany of things. And the reason I think it hurt me personally at the time was in 1990, everybody in the WWF called me, Sean, Marty, and Dustin the Four Amigos. Where you saw one of us, you saw four of us. When we would go to Pittsburgh, I'd give the key to my brother's house, who was a set designer in Hollywood, and make yourselves at home, And Scott Hall, conversely, when Johnny Ace and I were together, we would always allow him to jump in the car. It was very rare, if I can't even recall a time that he ever paid for gas. When it came time to eat dinner, I'll just stay here. Well, of course, come on, you're going to eat dinner, right? And, stuff like that. So now you do that kind of stuff for me. I don't care if it's 50 years ago. If I'm in a position today, brother, I got your back, and it was just completely different up there. Yeah. And, I was well versed enough in the business. The first time I worked with Scott, Bill was still there. Bill was there at the time. And we were in Lansing, Michigan. And I had been doing vignettes for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months. And we walked into the room. It was me, Bob Backlund, X-Pac, and Scott. And Bill was in there, and we walked in, and it was a long first aid room. And there was a gurney that Scott was sitting on, he's doing this. He's having a good old time. And Bill comes in and goes, okay, tonight, guys, it's Scott, it's you versus Shane, and Pac, you're going to be at ringside with you're going to be out there doubling for Scott, and Bob's going to be out there with you, Shane. And he stops, he looks at the clipboard, and he goes, Shane, what do you use for a finish? And as soon as he said that, Scott Hall went from this to boo-boo face. And I thought, dude, this is wrestling, When I lose, I don't really lose. And when I win, I don't really win. We're out there giving the fans a show. And that night in the ring, I had certainly been well-versed enough in the business and taught by and trained by enough qualified people in the business. I knew when I was getting the lead ass. I knew when I was getting the stutter step to throw the timing off. And we were outside on the floor, and I went to pick him up to body slam him. And it was Scott was a big guy, but he's not like an Andre big guy or an Undertaker big guy. And I went to pick him up for a slam, and it was like picking a Volkswagen up. And so I looked on the post, there was a square plate. Remember the square plate that was right at the bottom of the post where it met the mat? So I took him and I slammed him into that, and I let him go to slide down to scrape up his back. And I thought, we can do this the easy way, we can do it the hard way. And it just was like this constant push-pull. And, I didn't agree with it then. I don't agree with it now.
Does he have big man complex? Is he like the epitome of that? Because it seems like if you're smaller than him, he's like...
He's got a jerk complex.
Oh, there you go.
I was.
What do you mean, an asshole complex?
Well, listen, I was...
Because that's what I call it.
No, I'm actually quite embarrassed about this because I was trying to hang with the cool kids for a long time, and I hung out with them, and I traveled with Scott. And I was friends with Scott for a long time. I actually brought Scott to work with me in ECW in 2000 in Poughkeepsie. And he's just, he's just not a good person. He's got a lot of issues. And recently, I in the past year, I've had some more, negative, we're not friends anymore. And it took me a long, I always saw what he was. And it's a shame, because I had a lot of empathy and sympathy for him because I've struggled with addiction and alcoholism myself, and he's had...
it's a tough road.
Yeah, but nonetheless, it's not. And he had a tough childhood, but it's not an excuse to be a dick.
Thank you.
And I know Sean, and I haven't spoken to Sean Shawn Michaels since 2006, but I know Sean has at least attempted to change his life. I don't know how it is to be around him or work with him, but I know Scott has never changed. And it's a sad life. He doesn't get along with his son, Cody, who's in the business now. He's just who he's never going to change.
I've got another Scott Hall question for you. I just want to take a quick commercial break.
Excuse me.
All right, so back on the Scott Hall thing. And correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you were running the independent show, that infamous show where Scott Hall could barely move, that went viral.
It wasn't my show. We'd gotten booked on it. We were booked to work together.
You were there, though.
So
yes, I was there.
Where was your stance on that promoter putting him out there like that?
I mean, how much of in the back did you see of him before he got out there?
The whole time. He'd just come out of the hospital.
Were you amazed that he was allowed to approach the ring? Oh, were you just laughing?
Brother, I wasn't laughing.
Oh,
he had been to the hospital that day.
That day?
That day. He still had the band on when I saw him.
And he was there that morning for?
He was there at 4. He got there. He flew in from Orlando. I got there around 4 o'clock. And he was already, I guess he'd gone to the hospital to get medication. And he was already in the hole. And I mean, obviously it was irresponsible of the promoter to let, I mean, it was an embarrassment. I was out there trying to pull it off too. I mean, I was messed up, but I was trying to, I mean, I guess I was just as guilty, but I mean, I guess, it was very irresponsible. You don't let somebody go out there like that. But at the end of the day too, what do you tell the people? I mean, this is a small independent promotion that probably paid a ton of money to get him in there, and he's going to get paid no matter what. I guess. I mean, I don't know. It was just a sticky situation.
Oh, I'm sure he was getting paid no matter what.
But they should have at least. I don't know what you do in that situation, brother.
Wow.
Because then you have to refund money. I mean, it was just just a shit show.
I honestly think you refund the money. It was horrible.
It
was horrible for everybody involved.
Oh yeah, I was never been more embarrassed. But then again, as the only thing, and I'm not justifying any of this, by the way, but the only thing I could think of for small independent promoters, they'd lose their shirts and never.
What do you do? Look, we talk about this all the time,
Don't
right?
book the guy.
You're promoting wrestling events because at some point, you guys are icons, right? And people, are enamored by you guys.
Yeah,
so if someone comes up like that, it's like, what do you do? What's the situation? Hall was in here speaking about how the WWE paid for his numerous rehabs.
Yeah.
What's your feedback on Vince McMahon owing pro wrestlers like yourself lifetime medical, lifetime pensions?
Is Vince responsible for
Well, not just that.
Guys like Crockett? Why is he inheriting Crockett's guys from the old days? He's got to pay for them too. I don't. Get
At what
this.
point does Vince have to keep sending you to rehab if you can't get your shit together?
That's a PR move, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of guys were dying. I mean, I'll say it right here. I've gone to rehab on his dime 3 times, just not to be a hypocrite and let everybody know the truth. That's not going to, but I think it's a PR move, and at the time, because a lot of guys were dying, and it's almost like to say, look, if something happens, we do the best we can to provide.
Do you think Vince does the best he can?
No,
I don't think so.
Okay.
I said I think it's a PR move.
Okay.
I'm grateful it's there, don't get me wrong. But,
sure.
Because it helped me very much.
I'm going to take a name out of this and just give the scenario. Like Pete said, it's a PR move. And it was a necessary PR move, right? You, as a publicly traded company, you can't have your icons dropping dead in hotel rooms. But that said, to me, having been through the addiction thing one time, thank God, the hardest part was not getting clean. The hardest part was learning how to stay clean. And, when you're sitting, don't get me wrong, getting off was pretty damn tough. But then every minute of every day, it's saying, come on, it's been a month, you can take a point, that kind of stuff. And you just got to keep driving till it becomes less and less and less till it stops. To me, Vince McMahon has an incredible tool there that he chooses not to use, because if I give wrestler A rehab 1 time, 50 times, I can also then put a carrot and say, if you stay clean for 6 months, a year, see if we have something for you. Put the carrot out there. And I've heard multiple stories from friends of mine that they've been told, it ain't happening. Now, to that, to somebody who goes and puts that prodigious amount of work in, and I mean it is a mountain to climb, and then to be told, hey, sorry, I did all I'm going to do. Get out. There's a story, I will say his name because I have so much respect for him, Ivan Koloff. I saw him about 7 months before he died. I walked into a show, worked with C.W. Anderson that night in North Carolina. Ivan and his wife were sitting at the merchandise table. We always called him Uncle Ivan, so I walked over again. He was a great guy from the day I met him. And I've heard stories, but we were all assholes when we were younger. I was bigger than most. But Ivan, he was a devout Christian. He talked to you all day long. He cared about people and human beings. And I walked over and gave him a hug, and he said, Shane, you used to be a teacher, right? And I said, yes, sir. And he reached in his suit pocket, and he pulled out an envelope, and he said, will you do me a favor and read this and tell me what you think? So I opened it up and read it, and it started off with, it was a letter from Ivan to Vince McMahon, thanking him and his father for all the opportunities, how much he enjoyed working for them. But the second paragraph, like boing, jumped off the page at me because it said, I'd like to be considered for a Legends contract. I had just read somebody's Legends contract, and it was the most bogus piece of shit I'd ever seen.
PR?
Not PR. I mean, it was. It basically was you're signing over everything, even though it says multiple times you're not.
Right.
If you followed through, like skip forward to Schedule C, back to this appendix and this and that.
Yeah.
If you diagrammed it out at the end, you were signing your life over. And I told him, I said, Uncle Ivan, I just you don't trust me. Don't want to. He goes, I know exactly what it is, Shane. He said, I don't know how long I'll even be around. And then what he told me was what he had written in the letter. He said, I would like to be able to walk down the beach with my wife one time before I die and not be in pain. He then thanks Vince and God blesses him. I said, Uncle Ivan, if you know what a Legends contract is and you're fine with that, I said, I'd give the letter an A+ if I was grading it. And as he's putting it away, he said, well, thank you. And he went like this. He reaches in the other side, and as he's pulling out the envelope, I see the WWE logo. And I said, Uncle Ivan, that's your personal business, brother. That's none of my business. He goes, no, I'd like you to read it. So I wish I hadn't, but I opened it up and pulled it out. The whole letter was this long. It wasn't even professionally, addressed. Mr. Real Paris, 123 Main Street said, Ivan, I don't know why you're writing me this letter. This has nothing to do with my company. After all, this has nothing to do with my business. After all, I don't run a fucking welfare company.
Whoa.
Vince. To Ivan Koloff.
Wow.
And, do I think Vince is responsible for taking care of Troy Martin? No. But do I think these guys that have sacrificed their marriages and their relationships with their kids in many cases and done themselves real physical harm in the business, should there be some responsibility? Take the concussion, for instance. The NFL tried to conceal that, got caught with their pants down, and did the right thing. They settled the lawsuit and took care of their players. Vince McMahon in 1995 did a segment with Sean about the concussion with the doctor and saying, there's long-term effects to this and everything else. Suddenly saying it, see if you can find that on the network.
Yeah.
It's disappeared. And he has steadfastly fought that. And there is legally right, and then there's morally and ethically right, and then there's being a human being.
Right.
And I would contend that somebody like an Ivan Koloff deserved to be able to get his, so you understand, he'd broken his ankles like dozens of times, and both ankles were fused under. He's hobbling on the sides of his feet. Kamala, right? Jim's had his legs amputated, and these people. I don't want a damn dime from the jackass, but there are some people that can use that help, and I think again there's a moral obligation to this. The guy's a multi-billionaire, in part because of the work that these guys had afforded up to him. And to then just be discarded or told you're begging for welfare because you'd like to get your ankles fixed. I just see like a discrepancy. If you're going to send me to rehab 23 times at $50,000 a pop, but this guy needs a couple thousand or 10,000 to get his ankles fixed. Right. I mean, let's be honest. To a guy like Vince McMahon, that's the change we have in our pocket. It's disgusting.
So he should take care of Marty's foot.
Absolutely.
Marty's foot.
So let's roll it into Heyman then, right? You both work under Heyman, right?
Yep.
Heyman uses you guys to build his career because you guys made his career, actually.
Yep.
Then correct me if I'm wrong, kind of like leaves you guys in a lurch, runs the business under the ground, doesn't pay you. I don't know if he didn't pay either one of you. I know he didn't pay a bunch of people, right?
He's waving.
And now he's probably a millionaire working for the WWE.
You ever get annoyed when you see Heyman in today's state? I mean, like that no good Rick and Rack and Russell
I have no feelings.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like,
just don't.
It's a yin and yang, right? For me, Paul Heyman gave me the opportunity to be the franchise character that I'll be forever known as,
and just incredible,
incredible, and so you can't. And most importantly, from a creative standpoint, never micromanaged. Never came into, at least to me, and said, "Okay, Shane, go out and do this and this and this, and then this at the end, and make sure you say this and that." He would give me a general overview. Go out and mention Taz. Get heat on Funk, whatever. And allowed us to be creative. That was the fun part of the business. And I'm hearing today the kids are told, by the agents, do this and this and this, and here, read this teleprompter, and what fun would that be? I'm just regurgitating somebody else's garbage.
Did either of you ever grow uneasy, just for real, with the amazing amount of heat you were both able to draw? Like, whoa, maybe I do my job too good. Dude, you were hated. You were hated.
I loved you, but everybody else.
It's the truth, though. I mean, how was this behind the scenes? Do you look in the mirror and go, man, maybe I'm doing my job too good because you used to get... You, of course. But... I mean, they want to reach through this set. It's just incredible.
It was fun.
You were great at it, but
it just allowed me to be the person I am not in real life.
Right. Okay.
I'm a kind and gentle. You know me. I barely say boo to anybody. I have my flaws like all of us do, but nonetheless, I just allows me to play in the sandbox, and I just went out there and just went big, and I also just tried to do stuff that was going on, stuff that I would see, because back then, there was so much going on with the Attitude Era and the NWO. So my character was just a combination of a lot of the people I liked and admired, and I just went out there and just whatever stuff. I do whatever stuff,
Real quick, name a couple of guys you admired.
Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat.
There he is.
Shawn Michaels.
There he is.
And at the time, Razor Ramon as a performer.
Sure.
Absolutely.
One of the greatest performers of all time.
He's one of my all-time favorites. It kills me to,
Well, I mean, it is what it is.
Think
but
about
it just
him
gave
that
me an
way.
opportunity just to go out there and have fun. And like Shane said so eloquently, Paul lets you kind of find yourself. I mean, one of the best matches I've ever had in my career was with this man in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It
was fun.
Oh my God! When I show somebody a match, it's usually that one.
Really?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
It was the most, because we didn't really call much.
No.
We just went out there and we're again Flair Steamboat kind of stuff. Just chops back and forth. And
when you can trust, not to cut you off, when you can trust the guy you're in the ring with, that he's going to uphold his end of the bargain. That allows you complete liberty, because now you can go out and be the franchise. Because I know PJ's got his side covered, and then
you open up.
Yeah, and then you just hit like every great match I've ever had. You just hit like sort of a groove, and it's almost like autopilot. Like you get done with the match, and you're like not even sure what you just did, but it just flows.
And you're not going to get hurt.
Right,
you're in there with a certain God forbid.
Yeah,
but you're not going to get potatoed by somebody who's purposely trying to.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult to perform freely if you're afraid someone's going to dump you on your head. How could you possibly be loose?
It's
absolutely.
an amazing experience when you work with a guy like that.
How did it feel when you got your world title and had the chance to carry the mantle for
Before he answers that, we got to take a quick commercial break.
We'll be right back.
The paper straw is holding pretty tight. Well,
No,
maybe
man,
not.
that's not working.
I'm going to start sucking. It's going to start spraying out the other side.
All right, we're back. Go ahead, Pharaoh. Sorry to cut you off.
Just a
buddy.
reminder, Justin, when you finally won the world title, which I thought was an awesome moment for you, how did it feel to basically continue to carry the mantle that Shane had helped build for ECW, my personal favorite company?
It was. First of all, I didn't find out until about halfway into the show.
Really now?
Yeah,
Surprise?
Well, what was going on? It was at the time, I believe, Taz had come in. He was in WWF. Taz had come in to beat Mike Awesome, who was in WCW.
That's right.
That was
So
cool.
Taz was wrestling Tommy Dreamer, and I was doing something else on the show, like a small. I didn't have a match, small segment or whatever, and it was presented to me like a couple matches right before.
So you pull into the parking lot. You don't even have a match that night? And you
Well, I mean,
walk
Paul-
out of there.
Paul knew what was going to happen. I just didn't
my
know
Lord.
what was going to happen. But no, I mean, I was just look like Shane said. I mean, it's not like you win it or lose it. It's a performance thing.
I'm such a nerd. To me, it's
But I know
it's like
it mean what it meant to me though. In retrospect, it's that Paul trusted me to be the world champion. To carry that end of the bargain, which meant that in a world where there's WWE, WCW, and ECW, the top, I was somewhere in that echelon of, wow, you're pretty good, kid. So that's what it meant to me, is that I'd finally gotten to a place that I could be an elite performer, and it did mean something to me. I didn't mark out like oh my god, but it was.
You mean you didn't take a selfie with it strapped over your
shoulder? There was no selfies
and-
back then. I wish there were. No, but it was awesome. I was very happy, and like in something so trivial where. Back in the day, they still do it now. They had the top 500.
Yeah.
I was number 6 that year.
Yes, you
So
were.
Even though it's fake. Well,
Yes, you
that was
were.
awesome. Even though it's scripted.
Wait. There we
Whoa,
go. There we
I know
go.
the
There we
big
go.
F.
Yeah, you said the F word.
Even though it's a scripted business, it still meant that I was
Sure.
in the landscape of all these amazing performers
Right.
and athletes. I should say athletes.
Yeah, and to the wrestling nerd at home, that was it. You won the world title, bro.
Yeah.
So, Yankees win, the Yankees win. You know what I mean?
Here's something that's not fake, though, right? The boys taking care of the boys.
Yeah.
Okay.
You both were friends with Candido.
Oh, yeah.
We had covered last time you were on here, Shane.
Yeah.
I'd like Justin to weigh in on.
Please.
When did you try to slap Candido and say, "Don't let these people take advantage of you"? Sonny, what she was doing to him. I mean, you were pretty close friends with the guy, right?
Yeah, he was the reason I got to ECW.
Really now?
Yeah, I was in. When I was kind of Aldo was fizzling out, I went to Vince's office in Stamford, called a meeting, and I asked for my release because Scott and Kevin had said we can get you a job in WCW or something else, we'll get you paid, whatever. So I went to ask for my release. He said no. We'll send you to Memphis to be a heel, which is kind of a rib. But I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
So I went to Memphis, Jerry Lawler's territory, USWA, for 6 weeks. And at the time, ECW was there doing the angle with USWA with Jerry Lawler. Mm-hmm. And Chris was there, and Tammy was there, and Tommy and Van Dam. I'd never met those guys. But Chris is like, you should come over to ECW. I'll introduce you to Paul and get you in. And I was like, I was kind of intimidated because I heard all these things about ECW. I was like, I don't know. I said, I don't know, Chris. I don't know. And he goes, it's not like that. Like everybody, it's really, it's wrestling. It's, some guys do some things, other guys, we got good workers there. I said, all right. And that's what happened. So, I mean, look. When that stuff, when I was there in WWF, I was so young and so scared all the time. I saw what was happening to Chris. I think we all kind of did, but what do you say?
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't have the heart.
It's his life.
I mean, does he have a clue, or is he just like clueless to what's going
If
on?
you didn't know,
Yeah, he knows.
come on.
Chris was a very non-confrontational kind of person.
Yeah.
He would walk 20 miles out of his way to avoid confrontation.
Right. Yeah.
He'd give you the shirt off his back. He'd dig a ditch for you if you needed.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to get into this fuck you thing. And so I think he turned an eye to it. I think he genuinely, I know he genuinely loved Tammy. Yeah. And so he would, like we all do, right? We'd overlook things. I overlooked plenty of stupid things in my relationship. And I think that was the biggest part. You mix those two together, and that set Chris up for a lot of
not to bring it back to Scott Hall, but when he was in here, he's like, was none of my business. People could do whatever they want. And then 2 was, he thought it was Candido and Sonny's little deal. Like they did that. That was their deal. They liked that.
That's a convenient, right? Hey, don't blame my friend who just fucked your wife because it's the thing that they have, right? I mean, come on.
It was nothing like that.
Did you just want to slap the shit out of like Sean?
Was there anybody either one of you wanted to smack the shit out of during your career? Like, what is your effing deal? You know what? No, I'm serious.
Give us one each. Just give us one.
If you can.
Absolutely. For me, when I say this, and I don't say this just like to be pat to what we're talking about, but when I was in WWF in 1995, the only way I could go there and not smack the shit out of Sean or Razor or somebody was there's 23 miles from my house to the Pittsburgh airport. And, somebody like PJ, a performer, will understand this. I would transform into the franchise en route to the airport.
Understand.
And would stay in that 24/7 until I would come back and decompress driving home from the airport. And would be so fucking mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not easy being the Pharaoh. Go on.
And, it really wiped you out. But that was the only way you could do it, was to put on that game face and sort of put yourself in that world of fake WWE, Def or E, whatever. And, just turn cheek to it. And I had asked Chris one time if he wanted me to go have a talk with Sean. And he said, please don't. I think he was afraid of getting the pushback from the company. Right. Sean was their golden boy. And, to me, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to take a stab at it. Those guys knew what they were doing. They knew that they were protected. And so, without having to go into the long-winded story, the story about Pierre. And, when you see something like that, these guys are being driven around in limousines flying first class. Me, Peach, Tammy, and Chris remember we had bags on our laps, behind our heads, everything else.
Welcome to Wendy's. Can I take your order?
Correct. And not complaining. Hey, we were on the road and having fun.
Yeah.
But to see them then turn their sights on this guy only because he wanted to do what the owner of the company said to do, that shows you what kind of level of human beings you're dealing with. And I remember being in the room when they were doing that and kicking that around, and I felt like I was watching a woman being raped. I wanted to go take a shower. I was like, what the? Right. What are we doing here,
I'm thinking of the word hazing, but it seems like it's almost worse.
Oh, that's not. I don't think that's hazing.
No,
I think that's flat out just being.
What is that?
That's being disrespectful. Look,
but
they've all gotten older and they've thought about what they've done. And Sean has found Jesus, and Scott Hall is in here.
When he's not shooting deer, he's found Jesus.
But
go on.
Some things are just unforgivable.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin, you want to weigh in on this, or?
Look, man, it was a time in the business where, and let me tell you, and this is the funny thing too, is they weren't making all that much money then.
Really, no. Okay.
Scott would cry to me.
Or were they blowing whatever they were making?
No, I mean, maybe a little bit, but Scott was crying that he would be scared that he couldn't pay the electric on his house.
Really, no.
He wasn't making a lot of money. I mean, those were lean times, but. It's all a bunch of, I don't know, man. It was a lot of drugs involved, let me tell you that. Everybody was effed up. A lot of drugs.
But it's incestuous, isn't it? You're a family. Yeah. It's like, that's your sister in some terms.
There was no family over there.
No.
See, it was all for one and one for all. I mean, not...
One private little party and everybody else was...
But move it to ECW then. You want to take it from the WWE... we had Too Cold Scorpio in here. Yeah. He said while Candido was wrestling, Brian Lee was pounding Sonny in the back while they were watching a match.
Yep. That happened too. That happened with when Candido and Tom Pritchard would wrestle opening match. Hunter, when he first got in, would sit back and watch the matches. When the match was over, go and knock on the ladies' locker room, because back then it was only Jamie.
Yeah.
It wasn't like there was a ton of girls.
Right.
To let them know that, the match is over, they're coming back. It's just...
Pull your pants up, the match is over.
Speaking of...
What is going on here?
Yeah.
Speaking of Hunter, though, Hunter seems like he was a pretty decent guy, right?
No, he's a piece of shit.
Very interesting.
Tell me more.
Well, when I first got there, I started traveling with him, and I was there when Joni China first came to the company. She was just a local. She didn't look like she did at the end, and she was just a humble kid from New Hampshire. And Hunter just, man, in 1 year, he went from a normal guy to just a lackey for those guys.
Biggest opportunist you've ever come across?
Yeah. And look,
smart guy.
You can't say stupid.
He's a billionaire now.
You know what? I wouldn't want to be him. If
I
could switch with him, I have a lot of difficulties in a lot of areas, but I would not want to be him. Sorry.
Understand.
There's a thing in our business that I would hear these stories from Dominic and Bruno and all those guys about the camaraderie and everybody had each other's back and that, and I had never seen that anywhere in my career. Bits and pieces in the NWA, bits and pieces in UWF, but it wasn't until I got to ECW that I knew that if like in Allentown got attacked by the fan and the dressing room emptied out and dragged me by my hair over the railing and built a wall around me. half those guys probably couldn't stand my guts at the time. But it was us as a family.
Right.
And to me, like, you know, not to be the old historian, right, but, you know, back in the ancient days, they had the inner holy of holies in the churches, right, the synagogues. And that was the place that only certain people, only the high priests were allowed to go into. The dressing rooms are inner holy of holies. I can go in there and be Troy Martin, cut up with PJ, we can go out and tear the house down that night, whatever. But it's us versus them. Versus them in the sense of the audience, it's us to convince them that we're beating the shit out of each other. It's not, hey, audience, come on in the dressing room and meet Troy Martin and Peter Polacco. You know, and that was something that I'd never seen. And then when I went to WWF in '95 and saw the exact counter to that and all these things we're talking about, you know, not to sound corny, but at the end of the night, I got to put my head on the pillow and go to sleep. And I'm one of those people that's been cursed with a conscience. And, you know,
sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It does. And so I found out that life is a whole lot easier if I just don't screw. Exactly. Just go, get up in the morning, and no bullshit in between, and I sleep like a baby.
I want to ask you guys both real quickly. Dean Ambrose, known as John Moxley now, has done something very interesting, and I'm sure some of our friends from an artistic standpoint are probably thrilled with this, but I find it interesting. He has left Vince, as you guys both know, and now he's in AEW, as you guys both know, and he's basically hardcore.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting. Now, those of us who have followed him remember him from CZW, Combat Zone, so we know Dean's a psycho in the ring and everything. How do you feel about him actually leaving Vince, going this route, obviously physically killing himself at this point, probably for less money than Vince was giving him, I have to assume. How does this guy make you guys feel as, I guess, hardcore artists and prototypes of the genre? What do you feel like when you see Dean Ambrose taking less money? Should he have taken the safer route? And
that might have been the longest question ever asked in the history of broadcasting.
I thought it was well worded. What's your problem? Oh my God! Have an attention span.
I'll take this real quick, and then I'm sure Shane will want to, because I do a podcast with Vince Russo, and we specifically talk AEW.
Right.
I think he's getting paid probably as well. He wrestles one night a week. Okay. And not on the road all that time. That was the beauty of ECW. Was we only, we wrestled a limited schedule, not 30, we wouldn't go on tour in Germany for 30 days.
Right. Oh, God.
So I think to him, it's beautiful. I'm sure he's making good money. And if he's taking less money, he's working on Wednesday nights. And he's taking whatever indie bookings if he chooses.
Yeah.
It's not going to last.
Has he hurt his exposure? Because
I don't think so.
The WWE's ratings are, even though they complain today, it's still 2 million, 2.5 million people. It's a lot of people.
AEW did almost 1 million people. So where's the? I think he wins.
Interesting.
I would have done the same thing.
Interesting.
The only caveat I would add to that is, he's older now than he was. And speaking of somebody that's traversed that road, Terry Funk told me years, probably I was about 25, 27 years old. He said, call me Shano. He said, Shano, one day that bump tank will be empty, and there's no place to refill it.
Wow.
And when you go in there and you start taking those crazy bumps, especially how old's Moxley? 36, 37.
He's up there.
That's going to put mileage on him a lot quicker than if he was 27 years old. But I'm a firm believer, because we had the liberty in ECW. If that's what John Moxley wants to do, and the fans are buying it, then the artist should be allowed to have that autonomy to do that.
Chris Jericho amaze you guys both at this point in his career, that he still does what he does? Because he's amazing.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous at this point.
I was pretty much expecting this from him, because he's been around the business. He's a smart kid.
Reinvents himself over and over and over. I've never seen anything like him. His track record's ridiculous, the reinventing.
Listen, guys, I got about 2 minutes. I want to bring Eric Sims in from ESS Promotions. Eric, welcome.
Thanks for having me back again. Good to be back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Starting the 35th year of ESS.
35 years.
35
really
years.
Now? Wow.
35,
You're classic.
Thank you.
There you go.
1985.
Okay. Holy Hulk Hogan. Gotcha. Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
I was around
when I
was back in
and by the way,
they called the golden days.
Eric, nice mugshot with Vince McMahon. I saw that on Facebook.
It was blurry. It was
blurry. It was a nice picture.
So where are you and the boys going to be?
All right. So today, January 11th, from 1 to 3 p.m., we are We're at the Wrestling Universe over in Flushing, Queens, New York, and the boys have been there plenty of times, and we love going to the Wrestling Universe in Queens, New York, and so come support us over there. And then tonight, Titan Championship Wrestling, the debut show of Titan Championship Wrestling. Same promoters, -1, but a new attitude, new look, down at the Barnegat American Legion Hall. Shane Douglas.
Oh, and by the way, they're supposed to be sponsoring this show. We're going to start cutting these guys off, man. So,
and we'll get the sponsorship, and we'll talk to Billy and get that worked out. But Titan Championship Wrestling tonight, the American Legion Hall, 499 North Main Street, Barnegat, New Jersey. Night of the Extreme, just incredible. Shane Douglas, the Sandman, they'll be there, and so should you.
All right, well, real quick, guys, for the fans, you got anything, last words?
No, thank you for having me, Eric. Thank you for bringing me on.
Thank you for coming.
Great to see Shane Douglas, and it's going to be nice to wrestle tonight in Barnegat and see the fans in Flushing, Queens. It's going to be a good time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shane?
Always great to see you guys, man. No bullshit. It's nice, relaxed, have fun.
Yeah.
Cut up. You fans miss what goes on between these commercial breaks. A lot of fun times in the studio.
ESSpromotions.com for everything ESS.
I want to thank you guys. It's our honor that you come on to our little show here. But you can catch Monty the Pharaoh every Thursday, 8:05 to 9 p.m. every Thursday here on Village Connection Radio, YouTube. You can also catch us on cable, channel 115, on Tuesdays from 8:30 to 9 p.m., the shortened version.
Yeah.
And for you early risers, on Saturdays from 6 a.m. to 6:30 on channel 115. You can catch us on Anchor, Google Podcasts, wherever podcasts are made, and on the www.sportsnetwork247.com. And I think in a couple of days we'll be on channel 20. I don't have the time slot, so we're all over the place. And if everybody knows Shane has his own podcast, you have your own podcast. So officially we'll probably have to become enemies at some point. Because, it's just,
There goes the old Monty
only the strong can survive. No, but honestly, guys,
Be a guest on their show.
it could be. But who wants to listen to some fat old guy that has no hair? I don't know. I wouldn't.
What?
Go on.
But I will tell you, Shane, or Justin, the Pharaoh is for sale. Reach out to me. I certainly will rent him out for. We can rent him out on a per diem basis.
Yeah.
Jim, what do you think of that?
What is going on here?
$20 a day.
What am I, a VHS tape? What is this rental crap?
You've been watching Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, only seen here live out of Rockstar Studios. Catch us in about 4 or 5 minutes where ECW superstar Sandman is on the couch. But again, truly an honor. You guys are gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
I have the utmost respect for you guys.
Absolutely.
First time meeting you, sir. Well, I actually met you at an FTW event. I was actually hosting Roddy Piper, and you were at the table.
I remember that.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember
so, but Shane, I've met you 3 times, and I got to tell you, of all the people I've met, you are grade A.
Yep.
When I look at you, you are the epitome of a man, and I truly mean that.
Can I agree with that? I agree with that.
Until Sandman comes in, then you'll be like,
Sandman,
here
I
you
love
go.
you too. Want to have a cigarette together, Sandman?
Yeah, listen up, yeah.
Anyway, you're catching Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. See you in about 5 minutes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.